Here we go again. 2,550 people.
When it came to axing a lot of people, Phil Spencer did not lie. He just used specific language. You see, 3% of Microsoft Gaming's global workforce just lost their jobs. And that makes it seem small. Only 3%. Global workforce. 3%. It feels diffuse. It feels more like me cutting 70 calories a day. Which I should probably do. But the thing is, the layoffs are not diffuse. They're targeted. And if you work at Blizzard Entertainment, well, your chances are far worse than 3%, because 3% of Xbox Gaming is a lot of people if it's only happening at ABK. So that's our first big point. The second point then is spin, and that's because emerging staff reports do somewhat clash with the memo that was issued by Microsoft under Spencer's
What a surprise.
name. And of course, all beautifully timed ahead of their next reporting period. You see, big picture, Microsoft are saying that all of this stuff, all these layoffs, they were planned before the merger, that the merger had no impact on these layoffs. Hell, they argue to the Federal Trade Commission that ABK would be a limited integration studio. That means less integration, so less layoffs and that kind of thing. They literally said this sort of thing would not happen. And when we literally see Xbox gut the ABK support network and handle those functions themselves, well, it's rather suspicious. And that means...
Well, it makes sense, because didn't they try to unionize? Remember that? Can't have
got
that.
Stuff to break down. Number 1, layoffs. Number 2, games. Number 3, what staff...
They should be happy they didn't call them the Pinkertons.
And number 4, the thing I'm going to do first...
It's like the good old days.
Big news that just dropped, because don't we all love big tech? And look, we are here on YouTube, kind of playing into the maze, so I'm building an alternative for the future. It's Bellular.games. Over there, right? We've got exclusive content like Loading Screen, which is our daily publication that keeps you in the loop without exposing you to distractions and apps and all of those things that just make life worse. You also get all of our content ad-free. You often get it early, along with the research reports that these videos are built on, as well as, of course, our member community on Discord. Basically,
I've never been on his news site, but... Jesus Christ, did I just say what I think I did? On his news site. I've never been on his news site. But it's good to see people that are doing this.
I don't want to be limited by YouTube. I want to make an awesome experience for you, and that's at Bellular.games. The buyback. This is what happened just before I went to record this video. They announced a massive stock buyback and a 10% increase to their dividend. Now, I'm not going to get into financial nerd stuff. Point is, the rub here, they're spending money to juice up their stock price and giving a larger dividend to their shareholders. And so it almost feels like a paradox. On the one hand, they're aggressively cost-cutting staff. It almost seems like Xbox are cash-strapped and barely able to compete with Sony. Meanwhile, they're spending loads of money on buybacks and they're doing larger dividends for their shareholders. But the point is, everyone, this is not a paradox. It is the system. The buyback is not because 650 people got deleted. It demonstrates how the entity that they work for operates at the highest level and what its goal is, and that goal is shareholder value. That is
that's what they're going to do. I mean, and also, like, a lot of customer support is getting removed because it's becoming automated. Like, and also, that's not entirely a bad thing. Like, for example, I know when Blizzard created the automatic item restoration machine, like the toolkit, that was a huge improvement. Like, it was. And so, yeah, you're going to see tons of people get removed.
Number 1 objective of the board. And with that in mind, let's talk about Phil and the layoffs. Off the top of your head, how many layoffs do you think Xbox...
Somebody says automated customer support is how you lose customers. No, that's not true. Bad customer support is how you lose customers.
Gaming has had this year. And is it more or less than the actual number of 2,550? Because that's how many are gone. Phil's memo basically says this is them aligning their post-acquisition team structure. And he says there's no cuts to games, to devices, or experiences. And then Game File sources report that none of the business unit leaders at Xbox or its affiliated gaming teams will be hit. Instead, it says that most cuts are at the corporate and support role. But we should actually examine that wording, because the sources say none of the business unit leaders are hit, and there are no cuts to games. Those are specific words. They say nothing of the staff in those business units, and as you're about to see, yeah, actually, some games are being impacted. 2 games are struggling most, and they're ones you likely won't shed a tear for. They are Warcraft Rumble and Warzone Mobile. Specifically, Steven Totilo reports that Warcraft Rumble is moving to post-launch live ops, and that Warzone was not as big as they hoped. But that's not the only impact.
Yeah, because Warcraft Rumble is dead. Like, it wasn't popular. I don't know anybody that played the game. At least Diablo Immortal was popular for people to hate it. Warcraft Rumble was such a fucking such a dud that nobody even made content that was bad about it. That's how little people cared about it.
Games. So Variety say that Warzone stuff will be shuffled around, and Rumble is basically Blizzard's decision. And on this, I'm honestly not that surprised. I mean, the big hits, COD Mobile, and I don't know, maybe in some regions Diablo Immortal, well, those were co-developed by NetEase. You know, NetEase, the people who specifically are experienced in mobile. And of course, yes, it is insane that COD Mobile and Warzone Mobile basically both exist. What's odd, though, is the lack of Microsoft's plan, because they said they wanted King as a part of their plan to run their own mobile store, which was supposed to launch in July, but so far there is nothing. A quick note on Rumble then, because it is just the perfect example of a absolute, humongous, colossal waste of time for everyone involved, I would say. I played Rumble. My whole plan was to evaluate...
Did anybody play or try this game at all? Because, like, I saw the game, and the gameplay, like, nothing about it really seemed appealing. And the fact that I couldn't play it on PC, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to waste my time with this. I did for 20 minutes. Never heard of it? Yeah, there you go.
To find the grind and then see how they dangle purchases over me and then to buy some of those. I was going to do a video, but I just couldn't be bothered anymore.
That's crazy, because that's exactly what I did. I was going to do the exact same thing. I was going to try to spend $1,000 on the game, but when the game came out, I honestly just didn't feel... I didn't even feel like using it for content. That's how bad this game was.
Basically, the core game is pretty well designed. It's pretty sticky, but the lack of content and insane levels of grind are absolute deal breakers. And the content that is there is totally generic. It's just stuff in themed maps around zones that you know. There's no stories, there's no mini campaigns, the content cadence is pretty awful. I then compare that to what my friends who play Eastern gacha games do. And yeah, they definitely are squeezed for money, but my god, do they get a lot of content in return.
They do. Like, the thing is, like, with Honkai Star Rail, this game is a pay-to-win, gotcha, waifu simulator bullshit game. However, they put out a lot of fucking content. Like, there is a lot of stuff to do in that game, and the story is actually pretty good. It is. And, like, and that's true with Zenless Zone Zero to, you know, from my perspective, a lesser extent. But a lot of 100 million people disagreed with me about that, or $100 million disagreed with me about that. But look at Genshin Impact. Or Wuthering Waves. All of these games have such a tremendous value proposition that, like, how can they compete with this garbage? Really? Like, what the fuck? Like, it's not even close.
Unlike Rumble, which just makes me think, these people, this team had no business building Rumble. Why was it greenlit in the first place? Were they just chasing for Hearthstone? But guess what? There's a grind that we can sell the solution for even harder. It just says to me that this whole thing was doomed from the start, and they did.
It was designed to capitalize on the 30-something millennials that are fat, own Funko Pops, watch The Big Bang Theory, and use Reddit and say things are epic. They wear plaid shirts. Let me think. I fucking hate them, man. I hate them, and they're my people, and I fucking hate them. I'm gonna be honest. I fucking hate them.
Not have the in-house, well, chops to make a game like that good. And all that we, the players, got in return from that was staff moving away from games that we actually care about.
Yeah.
And so with this cut, we see that internal mobile game stonks are down. It's not just them.
You don't hate Redditors
to be honest with
enough.
you, I think a lot of those internal mobile games were kind of massive wastes of time. It just sucks, and those wastes of time also impact the people. Next, let's talk about staff and the who, because it's not just mobile games. We do not have a lot of public reveals here, but the few we've got are kind of telling. An encounter designer, a 9-year veteran on World of Warcraft, and certainly the new raid is fantastic, but there's a few little instances where I feel like more hands in deck would have been useful. So that's kind of sad to see. There's a senior talent marketer who said that most of her team were impacted, and I believe that was in the capacity of recruitment and that sort of thing. And then the story and franchise development team got hit again. And the wild thing...
Thank God for that. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. You want to have this bullshit story? Like, what the fuck? Where's Illidan? Thank God, bro. What the hell they been doing with that story, man?
Is that department has struggled for ages to the point where it actually impacts Blizzard products. So, Warcraft Chronicle Volume 4 was published full of errors and inconsistencies. And the point is, the story and franchise development team are the people who are supposed to fact-check that.
Because they fucked it up. And they got fired? Well, that's a Rip Bozo situation. That's the way it goes.
Right, to help keep the developers on track with story. And we've continually heard from people who used to be on that team that it was understaffed and overtasked. Then we've seen a producer go on Rumble, an IT engineering manager of 17 plus years, along with further reports of engineers and recruiters being hit, but we know that via LinkedIn status is changing. And remember, whenever Phil says the majority are corporate and support roles,
you never want to hear any of that. Like, listen, they just firing people because it costs them a bunch of money to pay these fucks, and it's like, what are you going to pay this person for? They don't do anything, right? Like, it's really not that complicated. Like, everybody tries to, like, fucking reverse engineer this. They're like, okay, well, this person causes the company to make $50,000 a year, and they cost $70,000 a year. Get them the fuck out of here. Like, it's the easiest decision of my life. Yeah, of course that's what happens.
They want you to think that they're trimming fat. Yet evidently, there's a veteran World of Warcraft encounter designer gone. And that's the thing. 650 people are gone. The majority may be corporate and support, but that could be 400, which would leave 250 frontline developers, and their statement would still be true. Now, I don't think that many frontline developers are gone, but I just want to bring up the point that any memo like that has got to be read with the utmost skepticism, because it's, it's trying to sell you in their vision. Then there's the problem of definition. How the hell do you define those things? Corporate, marketing, stuff like that? I mean, games need to be marketed well. How often do we see shit marketing that misses the mark for IPs for brands that we care about?
That's true. If you look at the Warcraft Rumble advertisements, they don't even have it. They don't even have it on here. This isn't even it. Yeah, there was one where it was like 2 people talking about it. Yeah, I don't even see it. They removed it. Good idea.
Take the team that does Warcraft social media. They would be considered a support team. The insinuation is they're non-essential, and in a way that's technically correct if the Twitter account dies.
Whoever runs the Warcraft Twitter actually, I think, does a pretty good job. Like, I don't know who it is, but like whoever's doing it does a good job. I don't know if like Adam Fletcher runs like the Diablo one, but I think he does a good job, or whoever's running it does a good job too. Yeah, they're good.
WoW
Random
will
intern,
survive.
Intern.
What that team has done is totally overhaul World of Warcraft's social presence within just a few years, creating a far more, honestly, like authentic feeling link with their community. So if you got rid of all those support people, guess what? You'd actually lose something pretty damn big that's high impact and that supports the game's health.
Twitter?
And it's this type of gutting specific support and replacing it with generic support from Xbox Gaming that leads to stupid stuff like the FF14 thing, where basically, right, their system, which was all machine learning based, it was banning people because of free company. Hey, do you want some free company in your area? Well, come down to my housing ward. That's what they...
It's part of the vocabulary filter.
They thought it was, which in fairness is kind of what happens in that game.
Yeah.
But basically, a free company's like a guild. People were getting banned because the bot thought it was solicitation, which is insane. You see, that's the big problem. Centralizing game support functions to Xbox generically means that specific game experience is lost, and that blows, especially for the likes of Blizzard, where their customer service used to be renowned and so often were fellow turbo players of the games. But of course now ticket times are far longer, and it's generally...
I didn't really get mad about that. Mistakes happen. There's always going to be friction with a big acquisition situation like that, not really a big deal. Personally, that's just my opinion. Mistakes happen, right?
Seen to be way worse, even though some individuals are still there trying. And that's not a surprise. Whole offices of customer service were axed. Take their Austin office that handled IT infrastructure. It's been ravaged multiple times.
That's right.
Brutally so.
I heard about that.
Now, Microsoft are not wrong to see duplication.
I knew somebody that worked there.
But the thing is, that's duplication in job title. It's not necessarily duplication in detail, and it's the details that matter because those are the specifics of how you execute your job. But such is the case with mergers. Sometimes part of the value add is just cutting down duplication.
That's right.
That is why Mr. Spencer says this. With these changes, our corporate and supporting teams and resources are aligned for sustainable future growth and can better support our studio teams and business units with programs and resources that can scale to meet their needs.
Wow.
Spoken like a true manager and not one who's dealing with the details. So, if you're at Blizzard, I am sure you're thrilled to start using Microsoft Teams and Azure DevOps. And of course, for you and me, it blows. Microsoft have put so much of their customer service over
I don't really give a shit about that because am I the only person that Blizzard never really gave us like super good customer service? Like, I remember putting in tickets from like back in the day, and the GMs would just answer them with wrong answers. Like, they were like, I remember I asked them, like, do I need to kill the Lich King on Heroic to get invincible with the buff turned off? And they told me, yeah. I remember that. I'm like, you fucking retard. No, you don't. Like, wait, somebody hired you? Like, what? Bro, like, they should hire me. Like, what is this? Yeah, vanilla CS was great, to be honest. I mean, some of it was okay. But I don't know. Pretty much it was standard. They didn't have expertise to answer our questions. Yeah. So GM and Asheron calls. These idiots are dumb. Yeah, I mean, of course, right? I mean, I feel like giving players the tools to solve their own problems, like, for example, an unstuck button or an item restoration tool, is better than hiring a bunch of people to do it for them. Like, and it's better for everybody. It's better for the company. It's not better for the people that used to work there. It's better for the consumer, too.
Chatbots. And look, for triage, I'm not against the chat. I mean, a chatbot with a good RAG implementation is probably more useful than a standard FAQ to most people. But the thing is, those tools can be leaned on too hard, too early, by people who don't
He makes a really good point here. I completely agree with this, is that there's nothing wrong with having a chatbot, and there's nothing wrong. Like, for example, one time I left my Uber in a car, and I'm so fucking stupid. I left my phone in an Uber. I left my phone in an Uber, and then I had to like go through their chat system. I have verbal dyslexia. Okay, it's just the way it is, right? Sentences don't go the way I want them to go. You know what it is, right? And so anyway, I did this, and I went through the chatbot system, and I just communicated with the chatbot, and it was no problem. And it helped me connect with that person, and it was no issue at all. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think chatbots are inherently bad.
Do the details themselves. Microsoft's bull case, in a way, is something I'm behind. The idea of automating drudgery. Take the butter-passing robot from Rick and Morty, right? Humans should be working in problems that require human intelligence and creativity. But here's the problem. It's such an easy argument to make at the C-suite level, but it's far harder to implement. And as anybody like me who has had the Dante of chatbots just juggle them for hours, well, not for hours, but you get the point.
I've never had that problem with chatbots. I never did, because I treat a chatbot like a machine. I don't talk to it like a person. So I try to use keywords that I think will escalate my situation or will cause the chatbot to do something.
Well, the tech ain't there yet.
Just how I do it.
Here's the problem. These tools
can
be goddamn amazing. That's outside of games and, say, medical screening. Inside of games, Blizzard uses a machine learning tool to resize helms. That is an artist-led workflow improvement, because nobody enjoys that. I use a AI-augmented thing for spelling, grammar, and custom
It's like
checks.
having an Excel function that automatically calculates, like different rows of numbers together at the end, right? Like, nobody wants to have to do that manually. So if you can have an Excel thing do that, amazing, right? That's super good.
that is leagues beyond Grammarly to the point where it can spell check Warcraft character names. My email client, Superhuman, it summarizes email chains super well and gives me context. Those things all rock, and they're great for the same reason the Blizzard's Helm resizing is. It's user-driven, because I know my job, I know what good looks like, I know how I work. I am sure that Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, is lovely. Same for Phil, absolutely. But they don't know how I work. They don't know how a frontline person doing CS on World of Warcraft works in specific World of Warcraft ways.
I think that's the way, and that's the reason why a lot of companies have breakdowns, is when you have people that become like leadership who don't understand the day-to-day from the company. Like we talked about this maybe a couple of days ago with McDonald's, where like the new CEO of McDonald's didn't rise through the ranks of McDonald's. He just came in from another company. And I think that's like a huge component to it. Yeah, it's massive. Give me a minute. My dad's calling me. Hello? I had to call my dad. I'm going to have to go AFK for like maybe 10 minutes in just a little bit here, just to do something. Everything's totally fine. It's just we're doing something, and it's not a big deal. I'm just going to put on a video for a couple of minutes. Not yet.
Mission, they are not frontline. So when the AI tools get pushed down from the top, especially at a company with tens of thousands of staff, it is not like you or me finding a tool and using it. Does Satya sit down and work customer service once a month?
Anyway, what I was saying is like, people don't understand the workflow. And because they don't, I think this is actually like a really good, the phrase that they use in corporate for this is called dog fooding. And it's when people go and they kind of test their own product. And I think a really good example of a CEO that does that really well is Dan Clancy at Twitch, where Dan Clancy very regularly and extremely commonly goes through and he, what do you call it? Like he's going and like he's streaming himself. He's interacting with streamers. He's using the services, etc. Right? Like that adds a degree of understanding. I wish he'd use the fucking mobile app. That would be great if Dan could use the fucking mobile app, then he could see what's wrong with it. But, and like, I think that's a huge improvement, right? And companies and like, people that don't do that, huge disadvantage, massive disadvantage.
So he understands what that team's doing. Does Phil shadow a mid-level producer on Warcraft so he understands what those people are doing? No, they're too large for that as an organization, and that means the leaders can be out of touch. And that means when we think about the layoffs, when we think about the automation, it all just kind of begs a question with these staff. Why did the flurry of unionization at ABK not protect people? Well, the answer is the parent union, Communication Workers of America, can't actually do much about this right now, other than a harsh statement.
Well, the way you deal with a union is you just slowly you shave them off. You shave them off one at a time, right? You can't pop them off all at the same time. Over time, you get rid of them. And then before you know it, now you're back to the utopia where people are working 80 hours a week for $11 an hour.
The reason why, though, is maybe not what you think. It's because none of the people who got laid off were under one of their unions, which is exactly what happened during the last far larger round of layoffs at ABK. Microsoft is a gigacorp that does not care about you. Act accordingly. And next,
of course,
Ubisoft are in pretty deep trouble that threatens the founding family's finances directly, and you can check it out next.
Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Ubisoft. I'll tell you that. I think this is the case with a lot of with a lot of these games, right? And a lot of these companies. And I think that a lot of people have trouble contextualizing and keeping in mind that tons of other people, like if you work at this company, the people that are running the company don't care about you as an individual. Like your supervisor might care about you and your supervisor's supervisor might care about you. But the person who's making decisions on a structural level for how the company is designed doesn't even know your name. You know, they read it one time and they're like, yeah, let's get rid of him. That's it, right? Bobby cares. Yeah, that's just the way it is. And so, yeah, I mean, it's always hard to navigate stuff like that. You're either an asset or a liability. Yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of an unhealthy relationship with companies because they don't think about it that way.